Alright, welcome everyone. We're Semblance of Sanity. I'm Caleb.
I'm Jacob.
And we're here for
Demon Slayer, Season 2, Episode 6.
Alright.
The wives have been rescued. Awesome.
Nosuke slithered his way through the tunnel.
That's right.
Yeah, motherfucker. He's just
dislocated
like,
all the bones in his body.
Stopped.
Yep, exactly. He was that kid who could do the worm, and he put it to good use in his Demon Slayer training.
Beastly abs.
That's right. Yes.
Assisted by mice with muscles. Muscle.
Right, because, Zenitsu had to get his sword somehow. There you go.
Mice with muscles.
Yep,
Muscle.
Right. Very effective.
Very effective.
But Tanjiro
kind of stun-locked right now.
Kind of stun-locked, but if he is also, by being stun-locked, even if taking a lot of damage, being able to also crowd control the main antagonist, that's still a success. That's still a win.
Success
You're not dead,
Yeah, but did you die?
Right. You might be slowly killing yourself by using this technique that is not being effective against her, but you're not dead.
Yeah,
so
determinate your way to standoff victory,
to heart failure.
Yeah.
35.
So, y'all, without further ado, let's get into this. All right, everyone. Now be sure to go check out the reaction portion of the video in the description below. Then come back here for the discussion. Nezuko has entered the field, and all right.
I love it.
She's ridiculously strong.
Yep.
She's activating some aspect of her blood's power to regenerate, which I feel like has to be a Muzan connection thing.
Right.
That's why we brought him up in the flashback again here to remind us, so that people are like, oh, wait, why is she so strong, even though she hasn't drank any blood?
Right, and previously she has had trouble regenerating when she was in fights back in Season 1 because she wasn't actually feeding. But, okay.
But no, when the brother and the sister are getting mad for somebody else, they can be quite scary.
Yep, cool. And narratively...
And that's what we saw here for both of them.
Yeah, narratively it's awesome. I love that Tanjiro, him getting so pissed at the demon lady actually felt like it was not just a power development thing, but it was a character development thing, because he's so kind-hearted that I don't think we've ever seen him actually go after a demon with
hate.
Yeah, with hate, right?
Yeah, or like no value for their life at all.
Exactly.
Saying, like you just deserve to die.
You are not a person. You are not a human. Not just you're a demon now, but like there is no humanity to you. I'm going to put you down.
Right. It almost felt like in the past, Tanjiro would be like, why are you doing this? And most of the demons had an actual reason.
Yep.
Because I would say most of them were actually pretty young.
Sure.
In this case, this is a demon that's so old. She's
so
like,
far gone.
I cast those memories off a long time ago. There's so many advantages to being a demon. Why would you even ask me such a stupid question? And he's like, oh, okay. And then after she's like, oh, there is a Hashira here. She unleashes all of her power. She throws off all restraint. She brings all the cloth back into herself, kills indiscriminately a number of people, and Tanjiro's just like, okay, that's what we're doing here. And fine, fuck you.
Right.
You're going to die.
Exactly. Yeah. And the power-up that the demon lady got of recalling the parts of herself into herself, that is something that I really liked mechanically, because... I didn't like too much up until now, like, wait, how is Tanjiro facing against her when she's upper 6? And we've seen how powerful those, people are, and, they can take out Hashira and all this stuff.
Right.
And Tanjiro is strong, but he's definitely not a Hashira, right?
Right. Yeah.
But there you go. She wasn't actually fighting at her full strength because she was,
she had all the cloth basically outside of her.
Doing other things. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. And then the idea of, it having those cloth strips having blood on their own, but then also people inside that she could feed on theoretically, although a lot of them were taken out now. But there's lots of there's mechanical reasons why them coming back makes her stronger. Cool, love it. And then Nezuko coming back and being in defense of Tanjiro, awesome. Like,
it's just cool to see her being utilized. I think that one of the things that this show really misses a golden opportunity for is the character interactions and opportunities for Nezuko and Tanjiro to bond over their shared trauma of watching, well, not really necessarily watching, but surviving their family's slaughter. And this is something that obviously is limited by the fact that she's a demon, so she only has certain ways that she can communicate.
Mm-hmm.
But Tanjiro getting opportunities to actually be able to communicate with that stuff with Nezuko is, I'd say, the heart and core of this show.
Exactly.
And if they're going to primarily focus on that in fights, great. At least bring Nezuko into the fight, which in this case, it has been done. But it was also an established issue of, Nezuko doesn't have weapon training.
Right.
What would she actually be able to do beyond being a feral animal? And it's like, hopefully she's strong enough to where most of the fights she's actually just going to be able to hold her own.
Right. And this is
yeah.
And that's something where if I were to like have a wish list of like things that I would love to see with this show, generally more Nezuko focused, but as far as ways that I think it could be done, if she was brought into the training montages so that then she can also interact with Inosuke and Zenitsu, I think that could be a lot of fun, because just the idea of her like having her demon powers, but then also like if she had like a Nichirin sword or something like that, or just had some more like martial combat training, I think that could be awesome. But okay, yeah, she's here now. Sweet. Her biting through the muzzle, that's something that I've always wanted to see.
I've always wanted that too, yes.
Because I get why the muzzle was there, especially at the beginning.
Yeah.
But now that she's grown so much and has a better handle on her demon side and isn't no one really has to worry about her accidentally killing a human. I kind of just want that to go. So
I do too, yeah.
So like the her biting through it felt like if there's ever like those badass anime moments where like the girl like cuts her hair or something like that. Like it feels like something equivalent of that.
Or someone like catches the sword with their teeth and shatters it.
Right, exactly. Bite, so it's like you bite through that muzzle, Nezuko. And that's also something where then that means that theoretically now she's
released her limiters.
Right, she's released her limiters, and now she is in a demon rage mode, so this doesn't necessarily have to happen. But I would love to see some dialogue from Nezuko, given that the demon that she's facing against loves to talk, right? If she also talks a bit about that, or like, granted,
we see what she is capable of talking about.
Sure,
anything.
exactly.
She shouldn't really be capable of too much actual, vocal dialogue, really.
Right, she's in the I pound your face mode, and the shot of the demon lady with the head slowly regenerating and stuff, that was really cool.
I also like that we've now established how hard it is going to be to kill her, in that Tanjiro actually got a full decapitation off, and she just transmuted her body from those parts into the actual cloth itself, and used it to soften the blow to the point where he doesn't even have enough pressure or tension
to actually cut it.
Yep. Which is like, that's so
janky and
right, but it's so unsettling as well to have a sword that can, cut so well, and yet while it's right on the last severed piece of her neck, he can't actually cut her at that point. And then she's just like, all right, now you die. I very much loved the moments at where her demon side was essentially taunting him at the points when he starts trying to reason with her, and she just goes like, no, this isn't
you can't
this isn't one of those
me.
demons here. Yeah, exactly. So if you want this, I'm sorry, you're gonna have to go to another demon to get that.
Right.
I have no issue with that there. And for efficiency's sake, given that she's going to be an actual hardcore demon for them to fight and have to stop, given that she still beat Tanjiro kind of by luck.
Right.
She didn't actually execute Tanjiro at that point there because of the classic, someone comes in and saves him at the last second, which is awesome because it was Nezuko.
Yep.
So that's awesome. But the idea that we came that close multiple times there for the, dramatic tension of things.
Right.
It's okay.
I love the fact that it's Nezuko. There are some things that I think are downgraded a little bit mechanically as a result of it being Nezuko. If it was Tengen, like we assumed, then it makes sense why it took until now, because they were doing other stuff and it took them a long time to get here. If it's Nezuko and she wasn't at the location of the fight, why did she not show up before now? If she was going, she wouldn't know necessarily that Tanjiro is actually about to die, right? And he was outmatched before.
Yep.
So but it's a cool moment because we've wanted Nezuko to be in this, right?
It's narrative inconvenience and convenience for the sake of
exactly.
having
it's
cool topsy-turvy back and forth in the fight.
I wasn't sold on the notion of why Nezuko had to stay out of the fight until now.
Right.
So her
arrival
coming into the fight
has no special reason.
Yeah, doesn't mean as much for me plot-wise, even if character-wise I like the idea that she's here.
The reason why is because they just went through enough exposition in the fight to establish why she's able to actually handle the upper six, which is the unfortunate thing about when you structure your shonens this way, is that oftentimes battles are a way for the writer to mask exposition in a way, which is why a lot of times one of the most frustrating things about shonen fights is that the one-on-one is dragged out over 3 episodes or so, because they're constantly because they're constantly cutting away to show backstory, flashbacks, exposition of abilities and what have you. And the one that they did with Rengoku's father, I feel like emotionally is one that I resonate with independent of this fight. Yeah. I don't feel like timing wise, unless we're trying to set up the difference basically between something like sun breathing and flame breathing, that's cool and all, in that we're trying to basically have this letter be something where it's inferred that this was done
a while ago, and so Tanjiro had already read the letter, and yet it wasn't relevant until now. But it doesn't feel very relevant even now, because I thought it was going to be something where it's one of the secrets of sun breathing is such and such, right? Or something like that, right?
And it feels like more that we are going to actually get that potentially, but it's something where we'll get it later again,
right?
And it's like, man, Demon Slayer, sometimes you're held back by the trappings of your own
of the conventions
of your own conventions.
Yeah.
When you're actively trying at times in the same episode to buck those conventions, by having the demon go, no, I don't have any sob story. That was hundreds of years ago.
Right. That doesn't matter anything to me now.
Yeah.
Sure, I probably had one, but
I cast that all aside.
Right.
Basically saying, no, Tanjiro, the thing that you've been doing throughout season 1
you don't get isn't
gonna happen here.
The shonen protagonists, both of them, Tanjiro and Nezuko, both ended up trying to do sneaky, unhonorable backstab attacks.
Because they're desperate.
Because they're desperate,
and they're mad,
and they're pissed.
They're pissed.
Right? This is not something where it's like I will maintain the moral high ground on absolutely everything.
It's I'm going to murder you.
I'm going to fucking murder you.
Right, you're an adult that potential is. I loved that little bit in the Force where have you the younger Tanjiro, of the idea of a younger Tanjiro kind of scared of the idea of what older him could become, but also the idea that Nezuko was even like this when she was younger, of if an asshole adult basically did something like that to you, Nezuko was like, no, I'm calling you out on your bullshit.
Right.
And he was like, well, thankfully there were other adults nearby.
Because otherwise that could have been a problem.
But that could have been an issue of wait a minute. Sometimes if you get mad on behalf of others, you can do things without regard to your safety. And you can end up losing some things or some people that,
Yeah, and this is the best sort of explanation in my mind for how Nezuko being left out of the fight and things like that, and certain elements of how this goes doesn't have to be that as much of a negative. Is that it's a flaw on Tanjiro's part where he will not let his sister share in these burdens with him.
Right.
The problem is that we had that moment where they did that in episode 19 of season 1.
What do you know?
So it doesn't really make sense for him to still need to deal with that. And 2, if this is a flaw that he showcases, because yes, people aren't perfect and they
don't overcome their flaws immediately.
Exactly,
but still,
But I don't believe that the show would actually bring that up because with how Nezuko has been handled ever since the beginning of the show until now, she's very much been on the back burner, only brought in when absolutely necessary. And sometimes I personally feel not even then. So I don't believe that they would have a conversation about this of brother, why did
this can't really
because Tanjiro had the consequences of that come into play here, right? He almost died, and this effect that this had on him could be permanent, right? This might not be something he can just recover from, right? And so I would love to see that conversation between Tanjiro and Nezuko of like, hey, how are we going to do this, right? We're in this together. That might not happen, but yeah, I think there's an opportunity for that.
Yeah.
The other thing that I feel like I don't fully understand from this is what made it so that the sun breathing started working all of a sudden. Because before it was he was doing it, and I guess he wasn't necessarily doing it very well or like for very long, but she was laughing it off and like and then after she powers up, he does the same thing and it is more effective than it was against her not powered up state.
So here's my thought is it's tied to the Muzan flashback that she had.
Okay.
Is that he is actually a chosen one. He is potentially actually inheriting something that was from that ancient warrior line or what have you. But it's something where just because he didn't get this because he wasn't born with a mark or what have you, you can be someone that is forged into basically that warrior.
And that was something that I also loved because the bloodline kind of stuff can get a bit like, you know, like it can feel like it can take away the agency of the person, right? And so the idea of that, no, he wasn't born with this mark, you know, he ended up getting it over time as a result of decisions that he made.
Almost like it was fated to happen, but it was still his
But it was still his choice. Yeah. I loved that. I was like, yes, that is great. More of that. But
more protagonists with agency in shonen anyway, because they usually end up reacting to the villain who's constantly 10,000 steps ahead of them with their 500 IQ plans.
Right.
But no, in this shonen, we've got the main antagonist hiding from the protagonist and then being like, "Can you guys go deal with that problem? That kind of scares me that one of them is back, you know, with the Hanafuda earrings and all that. Like, I don't want to deal with that shit right now."
Yeah, that could be a potential problem. And I loved that once the jig was up and she realized that her hideout, her base had been ransacked. She's like, okay, well, you know,
and Hashira is here.
And Hashira is here. She's like, all right, let's just
drop all pretenses.
Drop all pretenses. You know, let's just get lots of dead bodies that I could theoretically feed on in the middle of the fight. You know, like
I didn't even think about that. Yeah. That she's like potentially also like gonna go all like elevated above the place there, and
sending out tentacles and
grabbing more bodies and feeding. Yeah, that's a good point.
But also, I love that Nezuko is actually taking a bunch of damage from her attacks. That's just really cool. Yeah.
And Nezuko transformed. Let's see where that goes next episode.
And how that happened.
Yeah. So y'all, thank you so much for watching this episode's reaction and discussion. If you want to see the next episode's reaction and discussion right now, though, go check out the link in the description below for our Patreon. You can get an early access there. You can watch full-length timer reactions there, and all this comes with Discord access, so you can chat with us in the community there about this show, about anime in general, and also be sure to check out our Twitch channel.
We stream every weekday. The info's in the description.
Yeah, so if any of that interests you, we'll see you there. But until then, we're Semblance of Sanity. I'm Caleb.
I'm Jacob.
And we'll see you all
next time.